Ukraine?
Sorry, you said that and you said this yesterday, and I believe Jen said it the day before too, that the exercises are not related to any current event.
Correct.
But the creation of this rapid reaction force
Correct.
is related to recent developments, right?
That's something separate, yes.
And you don't see that as in any way provocative?
No, we don't.
Setting up
It's a high readiness joint task force able to deploy within a few days to respond to challenges that arise. It will contribute to ensuring that NATO remains responsive to its alliance, capable of meeting its current challenges. Again, this is in response to escalatory action the Russians have taken. It's a little disingenuous to say something that NATO is doing in response to Russia's action is somehow escalatory, that NATO should just sit by while Russia sends arms, sends men, sends troops into Ukraine and say, oh, we're not going to respond.
Well, but isn't it also disingenuous to claim that you're doing, I mean, Ukraine isn't,
but we don't seek
Ukraine isn't a
confrontation.
member of NATO.
That's true.
So you're setting up a rapid reaction force in response to to something that you say is happening in a country that isn't a NATO member.
In part because of, wait, let me rephrase this. Wait, let me rephrase, Matt, and then go on.
Okay.
In part because of Russia's escalatory actions, yes, in Ukraine, but obviously we're concerned about Russia's escalatory actions, just period. And so as we modernize the alliance, as we put more resources into it, part of the NATO summit every year is to talk about how we can have the best tools for the alliance to work together.
So where else have you seen Russian escalatory measures, and specifically in terms of NATO members?
Well, I don't have anything like that to outline for you. Obviously, we're focused on Ukraine, which, as you said, is not a NATO member.
Right.
But this is very close to NATO. NATO is committed to a Europe free, whole, and at peace, and obviously there are threats to that right now with Russia's action.
Well, okay.
I'm not sure what you don't understand about this, Matt.
Well, it just seems to me that if it is true, if what you say is true about, and I'm not going to argue with it, but if what you say is true about Russia's escalatory actions in Ukraine, I don't understand why it is that you say, or why it is that NATO putting together a rapid reaction force to station close by so that it can respond to crises like this in the future is not a
key term there. That's a defensive measure. Wait, let me finish, Matt.
Let me finish the question though. It may be a defensive in nature, but as you pointed out, Ukraine isn't a member of NATO.
Correct.
And you didn't want to get into escalatory actions that you've seen Russia take with regards to countries that are members of NATO,
Matt,
and which Article 5 would apply to.
What NATO has done, everything that we have done with NATO since Russia's intervention into Ukraine has been of a defensive measure to be able to protect NATO and our members, and also working together to help countries like Ukraine. There is nothing confrontational about it. It is not designed to confront anyone. That's not how it's being used. That's not how it's designed. In no way, I just don't understand logically how you can look at what something NATO is doing to protect our countries and compare it in any way to Russia sending, surface-to-air missile systems across the border into Ukraine, which are, by definition, an offensive weapon. Those are just categorically different things, Matt, and you're buying into the Russian propaganda if you equate them, quite frankly.
Well, no.
Well, you are actually, I think. That's what the tone of the question does.
Well, but you say our countries.
NATO.
Yeah, and Ukraine is not a NATO member.
I understand that.
So the point of my question is, why is it that you can't see, or why do you reject out of hand the Russian complaint that the creation of a Russian reaction force?
There's nothing offensive about a rapid reaction force. It's a defensive tool. How can that be threatening to Russia? How can a defensive tool be threatening to Russia?
Not necessarily threatening to Russia, but provocative. And that's what that's the point. And I'm not buying into anyone's propaganda. I think that's the whole point. I actually think the tone of your questions on these exercises has been a little bit. I think there's absolutely no equivalence between countries taking steps to protect themselves, their partners, and their territory against someone who is sending arms and troops and men over the border into another country. They're wholly different things. No one's going to sit by and not stand up for our principles and say, go ahead, Russia. We're not going to take any steps to protect ourselves. Marie, you guys object to other countries' objections about your military exercises all the time. and you think that they're perfectly legitimate, you say they're perfect, your concerns are perfectly, that their concerns are not legitimate.
The reason our exercises are they are annual, we announce them well in advance, and they are transparent. The Russians have used military exercises to cover activities they are taking very close to the Ukrainian border, to hide actions they are planning to take inside Ukraine. They have used them as cover for that, not transparently, on very short notice. They're wholly different things.
Okay.
Moving on.